This is the CNC Geekcast, the podcast where two guys with speech impediments talk about movies. I'm Joseph Collins.
And I'm Paul Combs.
And on today's episode, we'll be talking about Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle. We're going to be talking about the characters, the plot, why this movie works and why we're so surprised about it, and much more, so stay tuned!
I will admit, I'm actually really was surprised by this film. Like, I saw the trailers and I wasn't really interested in it. It just looked like generic comedy.
Yeah, I saw it too, and I'm like, okay. But when I started laughing at more than one couple of jokes, and I saw the energy the actors were putting out there, and what the jokes were about, and how the actors were just performing, I'm like, hey, you know what? There could be something to this movie.
Well, the trailers did look funny, but the problem with a lot of comedies, especially of recent memory, is that they will actually have all the best jokes in the trailer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
And I was surprised by Jumanji because there was so many funny moments that actually weren't in the trailer.
Well, a lot of comedies nowadays feels like there's a lot of things you can't really make jokes of nowadays, and so it feels like a lot of comedies try to play it safe with their jokes, and that's fine and all, but it just becomes boring a lot of times.
Well, you can still play it safe and be funny.
Yeah.
Like, Jumanji did a very good job of that. There wasn't really any offensive jokes. I can imagine a family watching this after school and after work, watching it over dinner, and enjoying it, like the whole family enjoying it. A heck of a lot more than the Emoji Movie or the Angry Birds movie or something like that.
Oh, wait, what movies? It's like, I blocked them out of my movie at this point. I'm like, oh, those things exist. It's just like the Star Wars prequels. Oh.
But anyway, another thing I really enjoyed about this film was the fact that it didn't connect itself to the original Jumanji.
Yeah, that's true.
Because the issue when that happens is like, let's say with the Ghostbusters. I actually did enjoy the new Ghostbusters film, but it had all these references to the original, so I couldn't help comparing it to the original, which was still a substantially better film. So it makes it where you compare it. And had Jumanji did this, you would have been comparing it to Robin Williams and his legacy, and that would have opened a whole can of worms. This movie did a good job kind of being, I guess what you called it, a soft sequel?
Yes, because a lot of people use the term soft reboot for Star Wars Episode 7, but I don't think it really is a soft reboot, quote unquote. But when it comes to this movie, yeah, I think it is a soft sequel because it's still in the same universe, and it does come after the first movie, but it's not a direct it doesn't just directly connect to the original movie. You don't have like you said, references of 15 years ago you had the Jumanji board game, which actually, to think about it, the original Jumanji movie I think did come out in 1996 or 95, and the opening scene was in 1996, so I'm wondering if it happened a couple of months after the original movie took place. I don't know. That's an interesting timeline.
No, it does create a timeline. The only reference I can really think of to the original Jumanji is the board game itself, because the opening of the movie, you see the box, the Jumanji box that contains the board game, wash up on this random beach.
Yeah.
And then the unnamed character gives it to his friend, and his friend exclaims, "No one plays board games."
But of course, when we're in the movie theater, I'm a big board game fan. And for those who don't know, this is the golden age of board games where you have far more games than your classic. There's a bad stigma about board games where most people think that the only board games that exist is Monopoly, Risk, Sorry, Life, and Candyland. Those games are for children, and Monopoly takes far too long, so I'm not having anything to do with them. And then it's like, but wait, there's a whole new world out here of board games that you're not seeing.
Actually, when I watched it, I don't know if Joseph noticed, but that line came on and I looked directly at Joseph. And I was like, Joseph was probably personally offended by this statement.
Well, I'm not offended, but I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like I said, there's a stigma about it. I'm like, that's the stigma.
But the board game itself seemed to hear this, and it transforms itself into a video game cartridge.
Well, I do understand why that line is there, and the line is there to specifically give motivation to the Jumanji board game to change itself, because what reason would it have to change to a console if it has no motivation?
Yeah, exactly.
And even if the motivation is technically not true, we also have to understand that this was during 1996. So cartridges, like they had the next. I don't want to say. Was it to be considered the second wave of console games or the third wave? I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know the generations.
Yeah, but it was one of the waves, like the early waves of console games. Back in 1996, where the PS1 came out, and you had the N64 come out, so you had a new next wave. And board games, of course, not that popular, but board games are huge in Europe. and you had, like I said, Monopoly and Risk. But you had another game come out called The Settlers of Catan, which was a Euro game. It came over in 1995. That became a big hit. So board games was starting to get back into popularity at that point, but it was a small trudge. I think it started back in 2000.
I appreciate this board game history lesson.
Yeah.
Are you wanting to rebroadcast ourselves as a board game show?
No, I don't want to rebroadcast ourselves as a board game. So I just wanted to make sure that's like I just want to throw some neat, fun facts
I know,
for the audience.
I was joking.
Yeah, So the point is, it made sense for the line to exist, because in 1996 you didn't have that big of board game, so his statement technically was true. No one played board games during 1996, so that much. It was a small thing, now it's big. So moving on to that scene, the other thing I like about this movie was, of course, the characters and the interaction. This is where this movie shines.
Well, it dragged a little with the kids.
Yeah.
Like, just because we all knew what was coming, I wasn't especially interested in the kids, just truthfully.
Yeah.
Kind of dragged a little because we all knew what was coming, and it had a little Breakfast Club feel where these kids would never hang out together, all thrusted together.
Now, the first half of the movie was the writers saying, okay, we need to get these kids into detention. How do we do this? Okay, well, let's have this person make a side comment. This person cheats. This person, helps cheat. This other person is on the cell phone and is, they do establish. The kids were actually there as just the starting point for the arcs, for the other actors. And that's really what the kids were there for, was that starting point.
No, I get that, and it did establish each of these characters' faults. Mm-hmm. Like the Instagram queen and the one the smart one who was really condescending.
Well, the one that didn't like sports is like, I have no reason why,
Well, she was definitely a butthole about it, though. She did not have to say it like that.
No, she didn't have to, but at the same time, it's one of those things where you get caught in the... I understand, you get caught in the moment, you're trying to be honest, but it comes out the wrong way, and I've done that so many times.
Yeah.
And then you had, of course, the sports guy who was too consumed about playing sports that he doesn't realize that, there's other things, you can focus on. And the other guy who's just... I don't know what his issue was, like the geek guy.
He was a nerd, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. But no, that's basically the beginning parts. Once they get into the jungle, it still was a bit trudgy. But the thing I liked about this film was how it was clever in some areas. Like the UPC kept on repeating itself.
The NPC?
NPCs, actually. The NPCs kept on repeating themselves. So they kept on repeating the exact same thing. When you try talking to them, they were not interested.
Well, I did enjoy a lot of the humor because I am a big video game fan.
Yeah.
I don't know that all the humor will be appreciated by everybody because so much of it is video game centric.
Yeah.
Like the thing with the NPCs, the NPC only has that designated script.
Yeah.
And if you try to talk to them too much, they would just say the same thing over and over again. Mm. And then there was the issue with, like, the lives and all that. There was some very distinct humor aimed at more video game fans.
Well, I like the life aspect because it created risk for the players. That's the thing that I like about that. So you have a weight now to the movie, which is really good for them to add.
You did, and that's actually kind of when the movie got started, is when they became aware of the rules. Mm-hmm. Like the thing with the life and how to access their strengths and weaknesses. That's when the movie really got started. Up until that point, it kind of dragged a little bit, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Just because you were waiting to get there.
Yeah, they had to... It's one of those things where you had to establish everything. You had to go through all the hard work to establish it. And, you have an action sequence where it's like, okay, that's fun, but what's the risk in this action sequence? And that's when the lives thing came in. Then, that would have been, But they had to do that in order to showcase that those are risk to everything. But at that point, it's like, okay, why are we here? What are we doing? Why should we care about these characters? And once that life aspect came into being, it gave you more reason to care.
But then the film worked so well, though. Even in the parts where it dragged a little bit, it worked just because it has 4 very funny people.
Yes.
Like The Rock, Karen Gillan, Kevin Hart, and Jack Black.
Oh, Jack Black. I enjoyed Jack Black. Some people may not, but I enjoy him.
No, I really enjoyed Jack Black. I think he was the standout in this movie, just because the idea of Jack Black internally being this 16-year-old Instagram queen is just an instantly funny thought.
Yeah, and the ideas they had when they had a girl in a men's body, they've mentioned that a couple of times in the movie. We can get into that later. They say how about on the subject of the characters. Let's go through them one by one. What do you think of The Rock's performance?
Well, The Rock is generally this action star. Like, that's what you think of when you think of The Rock. So, him being funny wasn't anything new, though, because he's been funny in a lot of other movies. Yeah. He had a decent performance, but it wasn't standout.
I liked how the movie played off his, it's like one of his strengths was being stoic, right? Mm-hmm. And he says a lot of things in a stoic manner. So he's playing a nerd, being able to do stoic things, and of course, both of the women were like, "Could you be stoic again for us?"
Well, I did enjoy the fact that each of the actors was playing someone so dramatically different than the characters that they had set up.
Yeah.
Because, for example, Karen Gillan is very attractive, and her character is thus someone with no confidence at all.
Yeah.
So being in this very attractive person's body is a completely new experience for her.
Not only that, but the controversy about her costume in the movie, and I'm like, but that's the point, though.
I hated that just because the internet
Missed the point.
The internet misses the point on a lot of things sometimes.
Yeah.
They get so wrapped up with wanting to be right that they don't wait a tick and make sure that their outrage is justified. Because a lot of times outrage can be justified. There are a lot of movies that legitimately do stupid things like that.
Yeah.
But at least take a wait and see approach.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's the same thing with Justice League and the Amazonians. That thing. It's like, okay, I understand that, but at the same time, when you have people who work really hard, like an athletic. I mean, you look at the original Greek Olympics. They played the Olympics naked, and the reason why it was to showcase their athletic body. So in some cases like that, yeah, I mean, it's what.
And it's just wait and see. Like
Exactly.
don't get so,
There are
so-
reasons. There are reasons why it exists.
Yeah.
Yeah, and wait and see. And I did like how this film, he had a 16-year-old who's like, may not be confident about her body, and that's really the point, though. That's one of the things about, that was her character arc, was to be more confident about herself in a lot of areas. And it worked in that case, because...
Each of these characters did have a defined character arc.
Yeah.
Like, Jack Black, he was playing the Instagram queen, did learn to care about people other than himself. The main character did learn to be a little bit more heroic, a little bit more how to take charge.
Yeah. Even Kevin Hart's character learned to be less about... He was a football star athlete. And so a lot of times that brings, self, like, I'm the greatest thing. And even Kevin Hart had to realize there was more, he went from an athletic body, tall, really good football player to Kevin Hart's character, which they play movies like I'm short and I'm not as fast as I used to be. Which doesn't really make any sense from a player standpoint, but it's like his weakness is speed.
Yep.
This is funny, but at the same time, it's like, why would your weakness be speed? Why would he have all these weaknesses? But it does good to showcase the lesson he had to learn as a person.
It did. It was a little bit heavy-handed at times.
Yeah.
But it still worked for me. One of the weakest parts of the movie, though, was the villain.
Villains are not, other than Kylo Ren, villains are getting weaker and weaker in these films that I enjoy.
They really are, especially in comedies.
Yeah.
But truthfully, I cannot remember the villain's name in this movie.
They were trying to show how bad he is, so he has like bugs going crawling in his ears. I'm like, why are you doing
That's just gross.
And
That was not...
It was not
scary.
needed. It was not scary. It was gross, and it was not needed. And like, I don't understand why you needed this. So is it supposed to be so how uncomfortable?
And the film did hint at a larger backstory. It just never got shown,
Yeah.
which kind of bothered me because the villain was apparently a character of The Rock's partner and friend at some point, and then he became evil. And then it's just, but it didn't really go anywhere with that. It was just like, hey, this is a thing.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah, it's a thing. Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I said, Kylo Ren from Star Wars Episode 7 and 8 is the most dramatic, evil villain we've had, and hopefully Thanos will be that way in the new Avengers movie.
And then also, the movie did kind of get bogged down a little when it introduced the fifth person.
You think so?
Yes.
Okay, how so?
Just, he had no chemistry at all with the rest of the cast.
Okay.
Like, that actor, he's a Jonas brother. He's not an actor, he was a musician, and he's this famous musician dude.
Oh, he was actually a Jonas brother.
Yes.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know these actors' names. I just
think
see
maybe
faces.
Nick Jonas. I don't know. You could see the movie definitely took a turn when he got there.
Yeah.
He just wasn't as strong as an actor. He probably didn't have the ability to improvise as well as the other actors.
Yeah, the experience.
Yeah.
Because actors are taught to improv. There's an art to it.
But you didn't think that the movie bogged down when he got introduced?
I don't think it bogged down. I think that though it did add a new element to the movie, which was the fact that he was in that game for 20 years.
No, I did like that because it established the stakes of the life system. Like, we had understood that before, but we didn't think about it as much.
Yeah.
This established the feeling that one would have knowing that, hey, I'm in this dangerous situation. I've already died twice, and I could very easily die again, and, well, that's it.
Yeah, and I've been here for 20, and the fact that he didn't think he was there for 20 years, like, that's really heartbroken. I'm like, it's just, and when he, was in this scene where he was dying, I'm like, are they going to kill him off? It's like, I mean, that would be sad if they did, but of course they saved his life.
Well, it's a family movie, so I still didn't think they was going to kill him off even then.
It would have been sad, but I would have applauded it for taking the risk.
And I did like the realization of Jack Black's character arc, because she was the one that didn't really care about anyone.
Yeah.
That was her main detriment at the first of the movie. That's the reason she even got detention, was not caring about anybody but herself.
Yeah.
And then she gives one of her lives to save the Jonas brother.
Yeah, this is nice, but at the same time, that character arc was interesting because she got upset because the geek girl, I forgot what her name was, but
Karen Gillan?
Karen Gillan's character.
I can't remember these character names. I'm going by the actor names.
That's fine. Unless you like Snatch, which they introduced you to the character, which was a brilliant move in that part, but we talked about that last week. But I think that you could tell that she definitely has a lot of eternal and she is bothered by the fact that people make fun of her, because she was being made fun of by Kelly. I can't pronounce her name now.
Karen Gillan?
That person's name, and you could see that, yeah, it bothers me, she said. It's like, you always insult me, always think less of me. It's like, well, you do the same thing to other people. This is how it feels, kind of.
Well, I do like that self-awareness, because it can be like that in real life, too, that you get so caught up in your own life that you just forget sometimes that other people exist.
Yeah.
And that other people have feelings, too.
And but the thing I also like about this film is because the MacGuffin was a diamond, a green gem or green jewel or something in the at the end, it was a weak MacGuffin. But that's fine because this was a character-driven movie.
Well, it worked because it was a video game. Had this been like an actual movie, it would have been terrible.
It would have been. Absolutely.
Like with the MacGuffin and the villain and everything, but because it was a video game, you overlook the fact that it had a weak villain, because so many video games have a weak villain.
That's true.
You overlooked the MacGuffin because so many video games have this dumb MacGuffin.
Yeah, but this definitely is about real-life characters trying to survive being in this world. It's like Tron in that regard.
You know, one of the things that actually bothered me about the video game, though?
What?
How short it was.
This is true. It's only 4 hours or something like that.
It was like 4 levels. Like you see them play the whole game. There is no montages. There is no lost time in the movie. The movie actually could have used a couple montages.
Oh, you think so?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Just to show the passage of time.
Just to show the passage of time that there is more to the game.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's a stupid nitpick.
How about this? It was a speed run.
Yeah, this was a speed run. Okay. There we go.
I found a way around it. It was a speed run.
What did you think of the last act, where they all had to work together to...
Well, that's right. The thing about this movie that I thought about is like the thing that's kind of that bothered me, but I understood why they did it, was how they tried to explain to the audience, oh, this is a cutscene. It's like a cutscene is when the game stops and shows you narrative things, and like for gamers, all you need to tell us is this is a cutscene, and we know exactly what it is. But at the same time, I understand why they felt the need to explain those things to the audience, because it was an exposition dump that a lot of people may not understand. I get that.
This movie was intended for a wider audience, though. It's already made a ton of money, so it did have to appeal to a wider audience.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to fault it for things like that. One of the things that I will fault it for, and this is like the nitpickiest thing ever, in the opening scene, he has a PlayStation 1 controller. Which is a disc-based console system. Yeah. And then Jumanji transforms into a cartridge.
Yeah, a Super Nintendo type of style.
The PlayStation 1 would not accept a cartridge.
Yeah, well, the controller. I mean, I think he used the. I think he. I don't know if he accepted if the PS1 accepted the cartridge, or he plugged in his controller into the new console. I don't know how that worked, but definitely someone dropped the ball in that continuity.
No, someone definitely did. It's a severe nitpick, but it bothered me when I was watching it.
It is, because we know better than that. It's like you said about how it's like people film in Atlanta, but they try to pass it off as New York or Chicago, and you're like, no, I know that building. I've been there. Don't tell me that it's a New York when that is clearly Atlanta.
Yeah.
Same thing. But going back to what you said about the climax of the film, to me, I'm like, it was a typical climax film. I mean, it's like,
it was nothing special.
No, it wasn't. A race to the top of the mountain, and then you save the day. That's what it was. And plot, I think if the plot was stronger and it gives more backstory to the villain, and that, I think the movie would have been a far more solid film than it already was.
Well, a lot of comedies don't worry about that. Because truthfully, what I imagine this film did, I imagine this film didn't really have the really traditional screenplay. I imagine a lot of it was, hey, The Rock, and hey, everybody, this is what we're trying to convey in this scene. get out there and be funny.
Yeah, that's true. It's the same thing like with Rush Hour, or Rush Hour 2, or Night at the Museum type of thing. I feel like this movie falls into like those categories because those movies were good.
Because that's why this movie worked so well was the chemistry between them. Because as you said, without that chemistry, had they not had such great chemistry, this movie probably would have blew.
They would, but the jokes were funny. I mean, the timing was good. The jokes were funny, and like we said, the characters. The idea of The Rock playing this nerdy kid trying to be someone like The Rock, that's what made this movie shine.
That is definitely what made this movie shine. What did you think of the ending scene, though, with like the weird passage of time? Like the fact that when they went back, the kid went back to 1996?
I'm glad that they added that. And in the minute the kid went first, my thought was in my mind, oh, he's going to go back to where he started. That's the only logical thing it could have been. And I did like that because... one of the girls did fall in love with him, but he had to go back to his time and establish his life, and that was a different. There were separate times, and it was just. But I did like the fact that you had Tom Hanks' son is in there. I mean, that was Tom Hanks' son. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Yeah, the driver. Yeah, that was Tom Hanks' son. So, but I loved how he automatically noticed those 4 kids right off the bat. It's like, oh wait. 1, 2, 3, 4. They'll come up to me. I know. Okay, that makes sense. And then walks up and.
No, I did like that because it was a nice payoff with some of the more emotional moments of the film, some of the moments that had some heart. Mm-hmm. Like, had that not happened, I think it would have dulled the moment when she gave him her life.
Yeah, it would have. I mean, I think that is one of the strongest scenes in the movie because he got his life back in more ways than just, a life actually, because his life was taken from him and that when those games sucked him in. Yeah, his life, living and doing the things like getting married, was taken from him, quite literally. He didn't die, but it still was taken. And that line, "You gave my life back to me," was far stronger because not only was your life taken back in the sense of actual breathing, but actually living it out.
He's got to have some weird memories, though.
Yeah. It's the same thing with the movie Frequency, if you heard about that movie. Yeah. I mean, if you've seen that movie, basically, and I really do enjoy that movie in the sense that when Jim's Caviezel character changed all the history of his personal history, he gets these new memories, and I like that aspect when he changed history. But getting back to it, it might have been real memories. Like, where do these kids come from? And it's like, oh, they're not born yet. It's like, I'm not going to see them for the next couple of years. I'm like, that concept appeals to me.
Yeah, it's the fact that when he got out, actually the kids weren't born yet because it was 1996.
So when are we going? When am I going to meet them? When he finally meets them again, it's like, oh, I know. He's just waiting for them. I like that idea. It's how it would happen if that took place. If you sucked into a game, then you could put back to where you started.
Because that's the thing that totally happens.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I get sucked into my games all the time. I mean, Crash Bandicoot, the headaches I got after playing that game. And a broken ankle.
Shut up.
But yeah, I mean, that's this movie. Total surprise, but I think we've talked pretty much. We've hit everything we needed to talk about this movie.
No, I think we have too. Though, truthfully, there isn't a whole lot to talk about. We focused a lot on how surprised we were because, as I opened with, I was very surprised by this film.
I'm also glad by it. I'm glad that they made a film that was actually funny. That they took time to, actually make something of quality, and the actors took it seriously. And that's the thing I appreciate about Jack Black, is that. Anytime I see him on film, it feels like looks like he's having fun and he's enjoying himself and he's putting himself and his best foot forward.
It was kind of weird to me though, because this still didn't feel like Jumanji to me.
Oh yeah,
it felt like a completely different movie. And then someone was trying to sell the screenplay to a producer, and the producer was like, "Hey, you could make some changes to this." And we can market it as Jumanji. People would love that.
Yeah, they know about Jumanji, and they want to go. And I think that was one of the things that hooked people, was the fact that they put the Jumanji thing. Because they remember it back in 1996. One of the reasons why Jurassic World was one of the most highest grossing films of all time, because it's like Jurassic Park was so popular. Let's go back to this film franchise. I'm still surprised that movie got so much money.
Well, exactly. I think they just do that with films sometimes. They will attach the name to it. What could be a completely different film, and that definitely feels like what they did to this film.
Yeah, and they could easily just reined it in and be like, just half it, just do a half. I'm not gonna say that word, but
yeah,
no, you know what I'm talking about.
Yep.
But as for us, we're about to go. We talk about everything, but before we do, tell our audience what's in store for them next week.
Well, I'm actually a huge Western fan. If you know me, you may actually be surprised by this, but I absolutely love Westerns. And next week, we're going to talk about the first of hopefully many Westerns we talk about in the future. We're talking about a film came out a few years ago. Has a great cast. It's called 3:10 to Yuma.
Now, is this the original film or the remake?
The remake.
The remake with Christian Bale and Russell Crowe.
Yes, I actually haven't seen the original. I probably need to watch the original at some point because, as I said, I absolutely love Westerns.
I also enjoy this film. I actually saw this film in theater because I'm for some reason I'm a big fan of Christian Bale. And I'm like, yeah, I'm Russell Crowe. I'm gonna go see this movie. So, but yeah, we're gonna talk about that. I'm looking forward to it. I've seen it a couple of times. I've enjoyed this film too. So there's gonna be a lot for us to talk about. But until then, I'm Joseph Collins
And I'm Paul Combs.
and you've been listening to the CNC Geekcast.